In today's episode, we're going to be checking out a Fender Ultra Telecaster, but more importantly, one of my favorite things about this guitar, I'm going to show you how you can add that to any of your Telecasters for about $100 or less. Also, it's important to mention that this guitar was shipped direct from Fender to a YouTube channel that's much larger than mine that asked me to do a deep dive and fix some of the issues they've seen. So let's go over some specifications. This is an ash body with a 6-saddle brass block bridge. So these are actually brass and then they're chrome plated. You have a 3-way switch and you have their hidden little button here on the volume knob, and we'll go over that in the Geeky Stuff, what that does. Then you're gonna have 2 of their newest versions of their noiseless pickups. I don't like calling them single coils because they're not. These are essentially just stacked humbuckers. You have a 1-ply extra thick pickguard. So this is a 1-ply, but it's not thin. It's equivalent of being a 3-ply pickguard. It looks beautiful, especially with the black binding that goes all around the body. You have a tummy carve right here, which is cool. You have no arm carve, which was an interesting decision, as you know, a lot of Telecasters I like have, if you're gonna have the belly carve, just might as well have the arm carve as well. You have a maple neck with 22 medium frets. They are nickel. You have, it looks like black pearl inlays. You have a bone nut, walnut skunk stripe, so they can install the truss rod. The truss rod is a dual action truss rod. 6 locking tuners. This is a made in the USA guitar, but something interesting to note is that nowhere on the guitar does it say made in the USA. It does say Corona, California. This is most likely due to the fact that none of the USA made Fenders now say made in the USA. In 2016, California passed a law, and part of this law makes it really difficult for a manufacturer to claim a product is made in the USA if it's not 100% made in the USA. In other words, if they're using any kind of components on the guitar that's not made in the USA, they have to say assembled in the USA. And I think the way Fender's kind of just tackling that is just putting Corona, California, which is essentially where they're at. And that way, you know, you kind of just know. The other thing to point out, you have string through body, so you have 6 furls here. There is no way to top load the bridge, so it's only string through body. This also comes with an included deluxe hardshell case that is TSA rated, which means you can lock the case because TSA has a key to open the case if they want to inspect it. I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is when you're traveling because you want to lock your case from maybe easy thieves that may want to open your case and take something out of it. But more importantly, you don't want the TSA to cut or break your lock off because they got you for a spot inspection on your guitar. It's just a nice feature. Also, there's something cool that comes with this is you get strap locks. So you get like a, I believe they're Fender branded, but they're a Schaller type of strap lock. It's what they're kind of copied off of. Okay, so let's do the geeky stuff. So first thing we want to do is make sure the guitar is tuned up. It's all tuned up now. Let's go ahead and check the relief. So taking a look here, we can see that the neck is pretty straight. There's probably just a little bit of relief, which is fine. Let's go ahead and check the action. I'm showing the action at 2 millimeters or 0.08. All right, let's go ahead and check the intonation. First thing, I want to check the scale. We are at 25.5 inches. That's measuring from the back of the nut to the saddle. When I checked each saddle's intonation, we had 2 that were out, so I adjusted those. I have a video in the description down below that'll help you set your intonation in minutes. Let's see how they cut the nut. We want to first push down on the 3rd fret and then lightly tap on the 1st fret. And what we want to see is no play. We want to actually touch that fret. You can see it's just a very little amount of play. And when we go across all the strings, it's pretty consistent. So again, I would say this is good because anytime you get a new guitar, you actually want it to be in a position where you, if you have to go lower, you can. You cannot raise without modifying the nut. Let's go ahead and check these frets and see if they're level, see how they did. One thing I hope you take away from all these videos, we're always checking the fretwork, is that you notice that on expensive guitars, most of the time, the fretwork is really good. And on inexpensive guitars, the frets need work. And that's why it's great that if you have a little ingenuity and work a little bit, you can make inexpensive guitars like this, where the frets look great. Let's go ahead and do a friction test. Well, these feel pretty smooth. So I would say not highly polished, but definitely polished, what you would expect. So those are nice. For the sock test, we have a problem. So a couple things to notice. What I want you to pay attention to is right here. You see where the polyurethane yellow is over on top of the frets? That's very normal, and it chips off. You see it's chipped off right there, right there. The problem is that the neck has shrank, and now the frets are sprouted very, very aggressively. But because there's so much poly, the sock doesn't catch them when I show you visually. Like I said, now we're going to do the sock test, but the concern I have is that the poly kind of goes on top of, so even though you can feel them, the sock doesn't really snag anything because there's so much polyurethane. You can actually see the scratches though. Now checking the bass side, we can see that it's the same. It's not really catching the sock, but you can still see some scratches. So this would be a 3, a 4 out of 5, but really it's a 2 because like I said, they're pretty bad. I have a video on how to fix that. So if you have fret sprout on your guitar, go ahead and click the link in the description down below. What we have here is a one-piece flat sawn Fender neck, and what's interesting is I say one piece, there's technically 2 because there's this walnut skunk stripe, and that's how they install the truss rod, so that's right there. But other than that, this is all one piece. Now something to point out here that I love is that they went and they stopped using the staggered keys. They're just using the lowest key and keeping them all crossed because these are locking, so it's not about how many wraps you need. And of course you can just increase those downward angles and that improves intonation and tuning stability. I like this idea. I think this is a great idea. Just put the shortest tuning key in there if it's going to be a locking key. So the fretboard radius on the guitar is 10-inch radius on the lower frets. And on the upper frets, we're 14. So this is a compound radius 10 to 14-inch radius fretboard. And they're showing this is a modern C carve, and I am showing the exact same thing, is that this is the modern C carve. So one of my favorite neck shapes, without a doubt. Okay, thickness at the first fret is 0.866 or 22 millimeters. Thickness at the 12th fret is 22.72 millimeters or 0.894. Something to point out now is the fretboard edge is rolled to an extremely comfortable level. It feels very worked in and vintage, almost like it's been played for decades. And with the Ultra is the new Ultra Access. We call that the handshake. The handshake is what we call it when we hold the guitar by where the neck meets the body. See how comfortable it is. Even though it has this plate, them rounding the plate right here and thinning it down and sloping it, this makes it super comfortable. The question is, still not the easiest access up on the upper part where the low notes are on your 22nd fret and your upper frets. But again, a lot better than a normal Telecaster and more comfortable than I need it to be when I'm playing around. Let's take a look at these electronics. Now, first off, of course, we're going to see a 250K potentiometer used for the tone control with a 0.47 microfarad capacitor. And then if you look here, this is that push pot that they're using. This is no different than a push-pull pot, but Fender had designed it to where it looks nicer with the button in the center. What we're going to explain in a second, but more importantly, right here, what you're looking at is a treble bleed. It's just based on a PCB board. So this is their treble bleed. So then you have, of course, the 3-way mechanical switch. And what looks like electrical tape right here is actually pickup bobbin tape. This is what they wrap around the pickup bobbins themselves. And they probably did that just to, I don't know, keep the wires out of the way. This switch, what it's doing is allowing these two pickups in the middle position only to become in series. So what that means is when you run these two pickups in parallel, they're not like a humbucker. So what I want to do is hook up the multimeter and just show you what's happening with this switch. So first we're going to start with the bridge. The bridge is reading at 9.42K. and the neck at 10.54. So the neck's actually a little hotter than the bridge, which is interesting. We'll check that out in the sounds. But when you go in the middle, look how it drops by almost half at 5.08K. These are in parallel. So the sound tends to be a little thinner and brighter, and you definitely notice a volume drop. Now when I engage the S1 switch, notice now they're in series. So they're just like a humbucker, one after another. They are stronger, 19.15K. So they're going to sound bigger than either individual pickup, and I'll demonstrate the difference in the sound samples. I love running my Telecaster in series or parallel. I love the idea of getting that bigger, beefier sound, and it's been known throughout the years that you just do that with a 4-way switch that can be added easily. Now here's an entire Emerson pre-wired kit. This is ready to drop in, and this would include your treble bleed, a Emerson capacitor, and of course an output jack. It's all drop in ready into your Telecaster if you want to do that. However, that's $109. For $26, you can buy the Fender 4-way switch for your Telecaster and a treble bleed and just wire it up yourself. And I'll put a link to the wiring diagram in the description of this video, and you could just wire this up yourself using exactly what you have. You don't need special pickups, special pots, nothing. You can do everything you're going to hear this guitar do with just basically $27 or drop-in ready kits at about $100. And while we're looking inside, there is no shielding inside the cavity, and that's obviously mostly because I'm sure these noiseless pickups don't require any shielding. They're basically humbuckers. So now what I want to do is show you a couple things. First thing I want to show you, again, this is the cavity. If you see this white powder, just so you know, we talk about this a lot. This is the buffing wax. That's what this is. After they buff the guitar, they blow it out and then they put it together. I don't know why. They don't ever clean all that stuff out, but apparently it saves them enough time and they just do it. This wire right here, this is your ground. So I always tell you guys this, it's a very common thing that happens with guitar players when they take their bridge off a guitar. They sometimes don't watch this wire gets pulled through. This wire has to touch this base plate. You need to ground your electronics to your bridge. Very important. This is the pickup I was talking about. This is their noiseless pickup, and you can see clearly right here what I was saying. Here's two individual bobbins. So this is a humbucker. It's just instead of horizontal, it's vertical. So this is one coil and second. So that's how they're getting these to be noiseless. And the same thing on this neck pickup. It's not as obvious to see, but there is obviously two bobbins there as well. That's why these tangs right here, they would normally be bent on the back side of this, but this is so tall because it's actually having two separate coils that they just leave them straight. Something to note on this Ultra Tele, if you get this, you could add a new pickup here, or in play, you could put a Strat pickup in the center if you want. You just need a special pick guard for that. And of course, you can add a humbucker or a P90 in the neck position. So they give you some features here to do some pretty cool things. And this is a good time to mention this guitar was 6.88 pounds. So this thing was super light. Now keep in mind, because it's ash, it can be really heavy or really light. That's the variance of how ash goes. Now they also make this in alder. However, either way, it's going to cost you about $2,100 or more. This is a pretty expensive guitar, even for the USA range of Fender guitars. Let's see how this thing sounds, and for the demonstration I'm going to use the new Paul Reed Smith Sonzera amp. This is a new version of their amp. I really like it. It's like the original one, but I think the overdrive on this is much better. So it has really nice clean and a reverb. We'll use that. It's mic'd up with an SM57. I also have a room mic. I'm just mixing it to where it sounds like you're in the room with me. I really love the neck pickup. Yeah, it's got a lot of fullness to it. The bridge has the twang, but this pickup, in my opinion, doesn't have the punch. It just doesn't push, even though it's basically a stacked single coil. Sounds good. I'm just telling you what I think is missing. Where in the middle position in the series, that makes up for it hugely. Versus the standard parallel. Both sound great. Okay, let's try something on the bridge. Turn the tone control quarter turn back. Kind of take some of the brightness out of it. So that neck pickup. Of course, the middle. And of course, Sirius. I like it with the tone control all the way forward. Gotta understand, when you go to this middle position and you put them in series, you're basically running a lot more wire, just think of it that way, which means you're gonna lose some highs. It gets a little darker, it gets fuller and bigger, but it also gets darker. So the tone control is really kind of the enemy of that. So you want the tone control all the way bypassed. Okay, so I've switched the amp over to the overdrive. Let's start with the bridge. We have the volume and tone at full, and actually the tone control is bypassed, as we said. Let's start with something basic so you can just hear how it reacts to medium overdrive. This is a very light to medium overdrive. neck now. Wow, I mean, it just kind of comes alive. Okay, now we go to the middle position. Yeah, you get that parallel sound that we like. Sounds good. Okay, push the button in. Yeah, it's got a really very focused in the mid frequencies, low mid frequencies punch. So I'm going to compare that. This is the bridge. Neck. Middle. And then of course, might as well do the parallel back in. Okay, I'm gonna go to the neck and we're gonna use that treble bleed. Nice. Okay. I want to do the bridge now, but I want to turn that tone control just a quarter turn back. Okay, so what about final thoughts? Well, final thoughts are always tricky with a guitar like this. You know, it's hard to be forgiving. If you watch some of my videos where I'm reviewing like a very inexpensive $200-300 guitar, some very lower price guitars, or how about mid-price guitars that give you a lot of value for what they give you, it's very easy to be forgiving when there's mistakes or problems. You know, this is basically Fender, which is about one of the largest, if not the largest guitar brand in the world, building you a guitar in the US at a premium price. I mean, $2,000 for a mass-produced guitar. This is a lot of money for a guitar that comes in so many versions that you can get this same guitar from the same company as low as $200-300. I mean, obviously, this is the flagship of the production line is how I kind of see this model. That's my opinion of that. That being said, some things I didn't enjoy was obviously the frets had to be corrected. It's a very tedious process. It's one of those questions, you know, if you buy a $2,000 guitar, do you expect to just automatically put a couple $100 into the service of that guitar? To me, it's not unnecessarily outrageous to say that you buy an expensive guitar. Even with an expensive guitar, you need a personal setup. If you want the guitar to play and feel exactly how you would like to do it or have it feel, that's reasonable to me, but I don't think you should be physically repairing the guitars. One of the decisions I'm not really fond of with Fender is they've kind of referred to the fret sprout problems in their guitars as kind of like not their problem. It's the environment and there's nothing they can do about it. However, I've repaired guitars for 20 years now, and I can tell you that 10 years ago, you didn't see this as much. 15 years ago, you didn't see it almost at all. It was very rare, and I live in an extremely dry climate. This is where it's really a problem here. So to see it happen almost on the regular now with all guitars at all price points really kind of alludes that something has changed. And when I kind of talk about that and go, you know, talk about the factories and what I see, unfortunately, I'm always told like, no, I have it totally wrong. Yet again, my question is, why is the problem so prevalent now in so many guitars at every price point? And it wasn't 20 years ago. Other than that, and maybe the arm carve, I think they did everything they could for a guitar like this. My personal taste, I'm not a huge noiseless pickup fan, but that even being said, this guitar sounded fantastic the way I heard it playing it. And like I said, that's just a preference, right? I mean, that's the easiest thing in this whole guitar. That's the easiest thing to correct and fix. It's just your own preference of pickups. But like I said, I think if this guitar, like if this was my Tele, once the fret sprout was corrected, I don't think I would need to change anything. I would leave everything alone. I think it sounded pretty good. So that's my 2 cents on that. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, if you want to support the channel, you can subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything but a huge dividends to the channel. Like I said, you don't have to hit the bell notification. Just so you guys know, the bell notification is so that if you want to be notified every time we make a video, just subscribe, because what happens is if I do a video on subjects you seem to like, YouTube has it's more likely to present my video to you if you're already a subscriber and you get to see them. So that's all I'm saying. On that note, I just want to thank you all just for hanging out for the video, especially to the end. Until the next time, know your gear.